Hello. I'm going to jump right in with this. So, I've been thinking a whole lot about what I want to do with my business next. And if you follow me on social media, Facebook or Instagram, you saw a real post about this week because I've decided that I'm going to start sharing more of this part of my life as I'm actually going through it, as opposed to waiting until I know where it all ends up. So, the more I've thought about this whole thing, the more I realize that this is not just a business conversation either. This is a conversation about what happens when you finally get to a place in life that you have more freedom to choose. And I don't mean just more financial freedom where, you can do like whatever the hell you want and never worry about money again. That's definitely not what I mean. I mean, some things that used to determine what you had to do just don't anymore. That's what I'm talking about. And that's a really interesting place to find yourself in. I also think it's a very relatable place. I was talking to a friend yesterday who is in the same kind of place. And she was talking about clients of hers that she talks to who are in the same kind of place. And it seems like it's a sort of phenomenon of women in our lives in our, say, like 50s, maybe more specifically, like mid to later 50s. And one of the things we said was it's a it's an enviable place to be, but it's also, and if this message lands for you, you'll know what I mean by this. It's an enviable place to be, but it's also a freaking scary place to find yourself. Um, so for me, what does that look like? Well, this year I retired officially, right? I am, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but I also, like, I'm 57 years old. We sold our house, bought a new house, moved to a new place, and we're figuring out how to live in this new place that's different. I mean, for a lot of reasons, it's different. I'm also, excuse me, you guys. I'm also, I'm learning how to play golf. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I just recently bought golf clubs and apparently I'm a golfer now. Another thing is my body is changing again. Menopause has been kicking my ass for about the last year in ways that even me, as someone who knows a lot about and teaches menopause and metabolism, even for me, I genuinely was not expecting this. So, all of that at the same time that I've been looking at the business that I have built for 6+ years now, and I've been thinking, what do I actually want that to be now? Because here's the thing. I know I can make a business work, and that's not arrogance. I have evidence of that for 6+ years now. I left higher education and I built an online coaching business that made multiple six figures. And right out of the gate, the first month, it was on track for that. So I know I can make a business work. I learned marketing and sales. My background in education folded right into that with what my PhD and my studies and research, excuse me, were. I learned how to create content and build offers. I coached a lot of women, and not just in how to revamp their metabolism and lose weight and deal with, navigating menopause in an effective way. Not only that way did I coach women, but then I started coaching women in building business and got really successful at that, working for another large company, contracting my business coaching and working for myself. And I got really fucking good at all of that. And for a long time, making that business work was super important to me. not just because I guess not because I just wanted to prove I could do it, but I needed it to work. And here's a little more, vulnerable sort of share. Like, what do I mean by I needed it to work? When I left higher education, I could not officially retire and start collecting my pension. In fact, I had several years before I could do that without taking a massive penalty on my retirement. I'd walked away from a really good salary too. And so my business that I was walking away from, that role in higher education with that salary, my business needed to replace that income. And I'll fully admit too, there was some ego mixed in there too. I had spent almost 30 years or right at 30 years in education, and I worked my way from teaching in public school into administrative positions, into executive leadership roles. I was vice president of a really large college. And the way that chapter ended was, I'll say it was incredibly difficult for me in a lot of ways. So there was absolutely, sorry if you're watching on YouTube, monkey just jumped up on my desk and came and screamed my Yorkie. Um, Squirrel. So all of that to say, there was absolutely a part of me that started that business and wanted to build it into something very successful on the other side of leaving higher ed. And I did that. And I'm super proud of having done that. But I'm also realizing something now. Just because I'm capable of continuing to do something doesn't mean I should keep doing it, nor does it mean I want to keep doing it. And that's actually a really big realization for me because I'm really fucking good at making things work. You give me a problem, a goal that you have or that an entity has, give me something that's not working or not working well, and I will figure that shit out. Like nobody will work harder than I will. And I have a knack for pulling things apart and figuring them out. And all of that has served me really, really well in my life, in so many ways, in my personal life and my professional life. But I think that can also, being good at something, I mean, can also keep you doing it for longer than you actually want to do it. Because instead of thinking like, do I still want to do this? You just keep asking yourself, okay, so like, how do I make this work better? How do I stay in it and make it more comfortable or make it what I want? You see what I mean? And those are two very different ways to look at a situation. The idea of do I still want to do this is one approach, right? But more often, I think we do something much longer than we want to, much longer than we need to or should. And it's because instead of asking do I still want to do this? We ask ourselves, like, okay, like, how do I make this bearable? How do I make this better? Does that make sense? And the funny thing is, when I look back, this is not really new for me. I have always wanted to do something new, wanted to learn something new, wanted to build, wanted to create. Even during my almost 30 years in education, when I look back at that time, just about every 3 years, I would change roles. I would take on something different, new responsibilities, more challenge, a different role that had me learning new things and figuring new things out, problem solving in different ways. And that makes a lot of sense when I look at the things that I enjoy. Now, let me take a side detour here for just a second. I didn't just wake up one day and all of this like figure out in my brain, like, the guy in A Beautiful Mind, where it just like blah, 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 and it all fits together. I didn't do that. What I am sharing with you now is after I've spent weeks, months, the last year plus, really doing a lot of internal work, a lot of introspection is how introspection, if I can get the word out, a lot of reflection and introspection and thinking, and working on this problem. Again, problem solving, right? Pulling it apart, looking at it, analyzing it, and putting it back together. That's where all of this came from. I didn't wake up and go, oh, this is, what I've, aha moment in a morning. It's not how it worked. So when I think about how I changed roles every few years and, kind of how that relates to where I am now and what I'm wanting to do and how I'm wanting to kind of pivot at this point, it all makes sense when I also think about the things that I really enjoy. I love learning. I love pulling things apart and building things, pulling things apart that are already built and rebuilding them. I love that idea of like figuring out why something works or why the hell it's not working. And I really, really love taking what I've learned and then teaching it to somebody else. That thread, that's been there forever. So this is not, again, it's not me sitting here at 57 going, oh, who am I? What does it all mean? That's all been part of who I am. And I know who I am. What's different now is that I have more choice now. For the first time in a really long time, I don't have to make my next decision based on what's going to make me the most money or what's going to get me to X place fastest. Do I want my business to make money? Absolutely. Like, I like making money. We have a house and a mortgage. We like to travel. I want to do things. I picked up golf as a hobby. I just told you that earlier. That's not an inexpensive hobby. I like having choices about how I want to live and what I want to do. So, absolutely. I'm not entering this phase or stage of life where like money doesn't matter to me anymore. That's not what's happening. But I do have a retirement income that's coming in every month now, and that does change the equation, if you will. It changes how I can approach this enough that I get to ask a different question. I get to put a different question first. Let's put it that way. And the question is, what do I actually want to do? What do I actually want to build? Not just what do I need to do for my business because I can sell it. Not just what do I want my business to be because that's going to make the most money. Even it doesn't even have to be a question of like, what could I make work? What I'm what I'm doing now is looking at what am I interested in enough that I actually want to spend my time doing. I actually want to commit my random Wednesday or Thursday to doing because I've worked really fucking hard to have a lot of control, like I do now, over my time. So I don't want to turn around and sort of accidentally put myself back into or build myself back into a job that I don't want or that I'm only going to want for a few months, right? And so I think this is where it stops, this whole discussion and topic stops being a conversation about my business. Because, well, for one, you might not even own a business. So what does this have to do with you? Maybe you don't own a business, but maybe you've been teaching for 25 years. Maybe you've been working in some role in healthcare. Maybe you've raised your kids for the last 20 plus years and they don't need you in the same way anymore. Maybe you've built some career that you're really, really good at and retirement is getting closer. Or maybe there's like nothing at all even wrong in any of that. And I think that part really matters to this discussion because we tend to think we need a really good reason to want something different. We need to be able to point to a specific reason that we want something different. Something, has to be wrong or has to be broken before we can want something different. Your job has to be awful, or you have to be failing at your business, or whatever, right? Maybe, you think you have to be miserable in the job you have, and that has to be the rationale for like why you want to change it. You need some justification, right? But here's the thing. Sometimes something worked and is working, and maybe it's working really freaking well and you're still really good at it. And maybe you could keep doing it for another 10 years. Even in those situations, you still get to ask whether or not you want to. That's a very different conversation from I have to, I need to, whatever. Totally different discussions. And that's the conversation that's much closer to the one I'm having with myself. There's there's also a piece of this that I talked about in the reel too that I think we need to acknowledge and we need to put out there. People love to say you are not what you do. And I really understand what they mean. Like my job title doesn't dictate my worth, right? My salary doesn't determine my value as a human being. I like completely wholeheartedly agree with all of that. But when people say you're not what you do, there's this part of me that has always struggled with that and resisted it. Because when you say you're not what you do, my response is, but I kind of am. And what I mean by that is, I have always deliberately chosen work that uses part of me that matter to me, right? Teaching, for example, that's not something that I just did for a living. I love teaching and learning, creating, like I said, building things, understanding things, solving a problem, taking complicated concepts or processes and figuring out how to make those things understandable or make them more effective. That is why I got into teaching. Those are not just like job skills to me. That's me. It's who I am. It's what I love. It's deeply ingrained in what I value, what I believe in, what I think has a lot of purpose in this world. And so you aren't what you do is kind of not true. And I know a lot of you are like that. And you don't have to be teachers for that to be true. A lot of you look at your careers, what you do, quote unquote, your job, and you do it and you were drawn to it because it's part of who you are. You care deeply about what you do. And again, not because your worth depends on your job or you need to achieve something, every few minutes and get recognized for it. No, it's because you care and you care in a lot of ways. It's like this reciprocal sort of thing. Like you care because your work has been one of the places where you get to be you. You get to do things that matter deeply, that you feel are important, impactful, and have a bigger purpose in this world, right? So when that changes, great. Like I could say, I mean, okay, so I get to work less, but that's not the answer. That doesn't satisfy me. That doesn't feel good because it's like, okay, work less and do what? And that is a legitimate question. Do what? What do I want to use my brain for? What do I still want to learn more about? What do I want to create? What do I give a shit about continuing and contributing? And what do I absolutely not give a shit about accomplishing at all anymore? Those are questions that are becoming a lot more interesting to me than they used to be. And I'll tell you now, if you've listened up to this point and you're like, okay, I'm waiting for her to tell me what it is she's going to do next. I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. I don't mean to let you down, but I don't have all of my answers yet. That's actually part of why I am talking to you about this. In this way and right now, because I could go off and figure out exactly what I want to do, what I want my business to be, for example. I could package up the story of how I came to that business decision, and I could come back and say something like, here are the 5 things I learned by pivoting in my business at age 57. But I don't really want to do that. I actually like the creation part of this. I like creating content too. Lord knows I have shown up on social media almost every day for, I don't know, 10 plus years or so now. So I really like creating content. I like talking about what I'm learning. I like sharing what I'm doing. And right now, this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to share it. So you're probably going to see me talk about business and content creation and strategy and, all things like that, because that shit is really fascinating to me. I can lose hours figuring out, for example, like why somebody's content took off, why an offer they put out sold, what happened before they put something out there as a business or put something for sale. Like what happened before that? What made it successful? I literally did that just this week. So a creator I follow, Jessica Carter. Carter? Yeah, I think it's Carter. Okay, Jessica Carter. She's a creator I follow. She made more than $46,000 in one day selling a $37 digital editing course. Now, it's a few days into her launch and she's made over $200,000 as of this morning. I was listening to her on a live and she's made over $200,000. But in the first day she made more than 46. All of that is very impressive, right? I went backwards because it intrigues me. I want to know why she was so successful at that. Like what made it work? So I went back through 2 months of her content. And let me tell you, I spent so much time doing this. People will think I'm crazy, but I went back through months of her content because I wanted to know, why did that work? I was not looking for just like what did she do, but I wanted to know like why did it all work? And the reason I did all that is because it's fun to me. I know, twisted, right? But seriously, I didn't have to do it. I didn't need to do it for some reason. Nobody was paying me to do it. It was fun to do that type of a deep dive analysis. But that kind of fun, it's not just fun when I do that like in business. So business isn't the only thing that I'm interested in or the only thing happening in my life. My body, my health all still matter to me. I'm 57. I care about how I feel. I care about what the scale says. And you can argue with me about that all day long, but I do. I care about how I look. I care that I want to be strong. I want to take care of myself in a way that I can live a healthier, longer life. And I'm dealing with menopause in real time. So that's part of all of this too. I'm learning golf. I'm doing all kinds of other things that I'm interested in. And I will tell you this, I spent, which, and I said it earlier, I spent nearly 30 years in education, and there is a lot happening in education right now that I have a lot of thoughts about. So I'm going to talk about all of those things too. And I'm really curious to see what happens. What do I want to keep talking about after I talk about it for a while? What do you want to hear more about? Um, what questions come up from those discussions that I'm having? What do I, find that I want to dig into deeper? Recently, for example, I've been watching and digging into the Lindsay Clancy trial. Again, it is the why that I find so interesting and fun. And the other part of this is like, when I do this, what happens if I decide I don't want to talk about something anymore? And in all of this, right? Like, what happens if I don't decide in advance what it all has to become? I'm not putting this goal of XYZ out here and running toward it. I'm not deciding in advance what that goal is. Maybe one of those things becomes my next business. Maybe more than one of them does. I don't know. For real, I don't know. And for once, I'm really okay with not knowing. What I do know is that I don't want to build another business just because I can make a business work. I can make a business profitable. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to spend the next 10 years maintaining something just because it worked, it's making money, and I did it for the last 10 years. I have more freedom than that now. So I want to be really thoughtful about what I build inside this freedom that I have. And maybe that's where I want to kind of leave you with this. I want to leave you with this question. Like, if you stopped asking yourself, what can I make work? And you asked instead, what do I actually want? Would anything change in how you answered those two things? And it doesn't have to be because life is bad or like you're having a midlife crisis and you just want to blow the whole fucking thing up in your life. Like, that's not it. Maybe you have a really good life. But again, inside a really good life where you're really happy, that's me. You can still ask, what do I still want to build? What do I want to do on a random Thursday afternoon? What am I still doing? Mostly because I've just really fucking gotten good at it and it makes me miserable and my soul is being crushed every day. Like, I don't I want to do more of obviously the former, right? Not the latter. The latter was like an example of like, what am I doing that I don't want to do anymore? Those are the questions. And I don't know where those questions are going to land me. I don't know what my answers are to those. I don't know where the answers are going to take me. I hope you're thinking about those questions and figuring out where you want to go too. But apparently, I'm going to take you along for the ride with me as I figure it out. So we're going to be in this together if you hang around. And I'll tell you, I am really pretty fucking excited about that. And if you hear the sort of maybe wonder and surprise in my voice when I say that, I'll say that I am a little surprised because I'm not one who is or has been comfortable with the unknown in the past. I typically have things plotted out and planned out, right? But again, I'm at a place in life, and I think we all can take this kind of control and have agency over our lives at this point if we want to. Maybe some of us have more leeway to do more of it than others. But whatever space and room you have it. Take that space and get excited about what you are creating, not just what an end goal has to be, because you're forced into the box of making that happen. That's why I'm really excited about not knowing. And I'm just as excited about you coming along with me on this journey. So I guess this episode was kind of like the state of the Lori Union. I hope you got more from it than just finding out and hearing about like what's happening in my world. But that is what's happening. And I would love for you to come along with me on this ride. You're going to hear more of this kind of thing on this podcast. You're going to hear more of this if you follow me on social media, if you're on my email list, which if you're not in any of those places, I invite you to join me in all of those places. And you'll see links under the description of this podcast episode where you can go and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Um, yeah, so thanks for being here with me. If this podcast, this episode, or any other episode really kind of hits home for you, if it resonates, if you have ever felt like, you know what, you're inside my head and I really get it. You're really making sense to me. If it has helped you in any way, I would love for you to write a review for me of the podcast. And please do send me a message and let me know. I'm not one who needs a lot of praise, but I love getting messages that let me know that I'm on the right track and that this is helping even just one person. I know it sounds cliche to say that, but it's true. I absolutely love hearing from you, and it would mean the world to me if I hear from you, because I don't want this to be a one-way conversation. When I started this podcast, and now I'm kind of going on a tangent, but when I started this podcast, I said, this is a conversation. I wish I could hear you talking back to me. I can't in real time, but that's what a message is for. That's what a review is for. I want this to be even more of a community as I move forward into what's coming next. So I invite you to be part of the community, but talk back to me. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for being here with me this afternoon. And I'll see you right back here or anytime that you're listening to it. Thanks for being here when you're here. And I will see you right back here next time. Bye.